Hi there. So today I wanted to talk about kind of the aftermath of being with a cluster B disordered person, kind of the after effects on the that being the victim. Obviously, having been involved with two, I've kind of got a good insight into this, and obviously both interactions that I had followed the same pattern, which is idealize, devalue, discard, which is pretty much the standard pattern for, anyone who's with a cluster B disordered person. You get the idealization phase, which is where you are, the most amazing person on earth, and you're put on a pedestal. And then you get devaluation, which is where all of a sudden you're, you just drop off that pedestal and kind of down into the gutter. And then the discard, which is where you are cast off, just thrown away. And generally you're replaced instantly, or you've kind of it'll overlap and you get replaced sort of before it happens. Generally that's what will happen, is that you'll get replaced before you're discarded, and then once they have their new source of supply all lined up and ready to go, and they know that that source of supply is not going anywhere, that's when you're usually become completely useless and they will get rid of you. So yeah, basically, having been through two of these cycles, they were both actually, they followed the same pattern, but the effects were different. The first time that it happened with the girl that I talked about in my first video, I leaned towards her as being more of a narcissist, but I mean, it's possible that she was borderline, but more of the queen type, which I basically think queen type borderline is just a narcissist. She was incredibly self-absorbed, and she was all about her image and her appearance to other people, and she'd come across as being quite confident, and certainly dominant, domineering. After everything that happened that I explained in my last video, I came out of that depressed. It was bad. I obviously, I moved to a new flat. I left university and I started a new job. That whole kind of experience that I went through, it really robbed me of a lot of confidence, happiness, and my life after that for the next sort of 2-year period was that I threw myself into this new job and I played a hell of a lot of video games. I had the obsessive thinking about her and wanting her back, and could I get her back, and that all lasted for probably only about 6 months, I'd say, until that kind of wore off. But it left me just in this kind of funk where I lost all my confidence, and I kind of just gave up on dating, relationships, and all that kind of thing. And I just played video games. I played a lot of Fallout, BioShock, Final Fantasy, those kind of games. I just lost myself in them, and that was kind of all I really enjoyed doing. So, I'd work and I'd come home and I'd just play video games and eat. I lost pride in myself. I really let myself go physically. I got quite fat. And yeah, as I say, my confidence and kind of just my whole interest in dating and that was gone. And it was to the point where even if, and this happened quite rarely because of this kind of condition that I was in, even if I was approached by a girl, or a girl was blatantly showing interest in me, my kind of thoughts on it was just that, nah, you know, she won't really be interested in me. It's you know, I just wrote it off, and I'd never pursued anything. And I lived like this for a couple of years, you know. And then just as it started to fade was when I met the girl who had borderline personality disorder. And she was a totally different proposition from that first girl. I don't want to talk too much about this girl because it's too fresh, and yeah, I'm just not really ready to divulge too much into it, but I will kind of just give some basics on it, just so as I can, you know, better explain these after effects. So this girl was borderline, and she was the waif type borderline, which is, if you look it up, a lot of people would suggest that it's possibly the most dangerous, purely because of the effect that they have on you. So borderline waifs are, they're usually very quiet. They kind of sort of have this aura of almost tragedy about them. You know, they have usually a story of a very, very tough life and upbringing and being downtrodden, and you know, that's kind of the vibe that you get off of them. It's this fragile, quiet little doll that wouldn't hurt a fly. And you know, that was certainly this second girl, you know, very strikingly beautiful, but severely lacking in confidence, you know, thought she was ugly, self-loathing, depressed, but as I say, stunningly beautiful, and definitely having a lot of positives, you know, sense of humor, can come across as being very kind and sweet. You know, I met this girl, and I kind of saw some of myself in her, I guess you could say. It was like I'd been through bad times, and I was depressed, and so was she, and, you know, so basically, you know, I may one day get into the ins and outs of that interaction, but needless to say, went through that whole idealize, devalue, discard phase. But the impact of this cycle was worse than the first one by orders of magnitude. It made the first one look like it was like a walk in the park, you know. It was nothing. This second one with the borderline waif was the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. I can't give it words. I can't give the pain words. You know, the first one, you know, it sucked and it was horrible and it left me in a low-level depression. Well, the second one tore me to shreds. It just destroyed me. I kind of like, you know, I was trying to find words for it. Anyone that's seen Star Wars, where they have the Death Star, and it you know, it fires that laser beam that just blows planets up. It was like that, you know. That was kind of one of the ways I described it. I mean, it ruined me, and yeah, you know, it's crazy, and I am struggling for words to just describe the level of pain that I felt. I never thought I'd get over it. It was like all my hope of anything good was just snuffed out, and I was just left in darkness, you know. And it took months, 5-6 months before I started to feel better. And you know, it was a slow process. I couldn't, there was nothing that I could do that had any meaning after that pain. I couldn't throw myself into work. I couldn't play video games. I couldn't anything. There was no distraction. And, you know, my kind of the way my life went for those few months was I didn't sleep at all, you know. I mean, eventually I did get to the point where I could get a couple of hours sleep, but for weeks and weeks after that, I don't remember sleeping. The obsessive thinking was going a million miles an hour, and that lasted. That was horrible. The obsessive thinking, not being able to get her or what had happened out of my mind. No matter what I did, it just constantly kind of crept in. And, you know, even when after a little while, I did start to manage to sleep, it would be the first thing on my mind within seconds of opening my eyes, and the last thing I thought about before I fell asleep. You know, it was just all day, every day. I couldn't eat. I had no appetite. I lost so much weight. By some miracle, I managed to keep hold of my job. But, I mean, it really was a miracle, because my work performance was completely down the toilet. I pushed all my friends and family away. The few people that did try to stick by me eventually just got sick of me. And yeah, I just smoked a hell of a lot of cigarettes and drunk a hell of a lot of Red Bull, and that was kind of what I survived on. I was just a completely broken down shell. And, you know, anybody that's been through that process, they know what it feels like. And you can't describe it. You know, you try to describe it to friends or family, and they don't get it. I think the only thing that could potentially come close, and I don't mean to be melodramatic, but I think the only pain that could potentially come close to that would probably be, you know, or not come close, but be comparable, would be losing a child. I don't think there's anything else that compares. I mean, you know, I've lost family members. I've been dumped, obviously, by a narcissist. You know, I've been devalued by a narcissist, and it's nothing. It's not the same level. It's just as that being devalued and dumped by a borderline waif. Oh my word! But yeah, you know, so it destroys you, it ruins you. But in looking for the positive, you know, how did I recover from it to the point where I can now sit and discuss it and have a bit of a chuckle, you know, like, and it not be the be-all and end-all? Because, you know, these days I'm doing a hell of a lot better, and I'm doing better than I've been in years, really. You know, I'm in the gym, I'm taking care of myself, I'm looking after myself, my social life's better. You know, I'm repairing my reputation at work. I'm on the mend, you know, I can positively say that. Things are looking up. I'm not depressed anymore. But I just have a lot of work to do on myself. But, you know, I think the main thing is, if you find out as much information as you can about, you know, these cluster B illnesses, I think that really helps, because, you know, it gives you some answers. It allows you to understand that what happened was, you know, not your fault. And I think that's a major thing. I really feel sorry for those people out there that go through this process, and perhaps, you know, they don't get the answers. Anyone that's been through the borderline process, or the narcissist process, or, you know, sociopath, histrionic, whatever, anyone that's been through that and didn't know that the person they were involved with suffered from this kind of thing, wow. I mean, I don't really know how a person could get beyond that, you know, how they could recover from that. So, you know, if you've just been through this process and you're here watching this video, that's one thing that you can be grateful for, is that at least you know. And if you know that something was wrong with them, then you've got a starting point for recovery. The other side of it is delving into your own issues. For me, and probably for most people that have been through this, codependency will be the main problem within yourself that led you to this position, you know. So in addressing codependency, you've kind of got to do the research on that, which is what I did, and figure out what led you to be codependent. You know, it's usually something in your upbringing. Have a look at your family of origin and, you know, how your upbringing may have affected you. If you had an emotionally unstable parent, then you are likely, you know, to have developed codependency, which will have, you know, kind of led you to seek out that dynamic in relationships as an adult. And that's another huge one. I mean, if you're suffering from codependency, it is fixable. I'm working on fixing it in myself, and I've done a pretty good job. You know, I do now consider my own needs. I do think that I'm important, and I never did before. I always sought reason for me to be around, or you know, for me to be happy in helping other people or trying to fix other people. And I now understand that everybody needs to fix themselves, and that starts at home. I also understand now that, you know, if you're suffering from codependency and people pleaser syndrome and all of these kind of things, you know, white knight syndrome, you know, if any guys that are listening to this who've been involved with the cluster B, I'm pretty sure that at various points in your life, you will have had women tell you that you're such a nice guy. You know, that was something that I always used to experience. I was always the nice guy. And nice guy really is just another word for codependent. You know, there's a hell of a lot that codependency does have to answer for. And, you know, that's something that I will address on this channel more in depth, but it's pretty huge. But yeah, as I say, you know, once you've really addressed that, then you're on the steps to recovery. But a few tips for anyone that's just recently been through this process. Number one is, you know, no contact. You'll hear this talked about at great length, but it is hugely important, and it's something that must be done. One of the main problems that a lot of people have with no contact is like closing the door to any future engagement with the cluster B in their life. But I think something that's never really suggested is if you are having problems executing no contact, is give yourself a time limit. And I would suggest a time limit of at least a month, but I would probably prefer it to be 3 months at least. Tell yourself that you're going no contact and that you're going to go no contact for 3 months, and use that time to repair yourself. If at the end of 3 months, you know, you've got yourself into a much more stable emotional condition and you still feel the need to reach out for whatever reason after you've been educated on the disorder that this person suffers from and you know all about it, if you still want to reach out, you know what? It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Everybody's an adult here and, you know, you can do what you want. I wouldn't suggest it and I wouldn't recommend it. And after what you've just been through, it would be rather foolish probably to expect anything to change the second time around if you do re-establish contact. But if that's what you want to do, so be it. But stick to no contact for a month at the very least, because if you've been split black, you know, devalued and split black, and your former lover or best friend or whatever the case may be currently hates you and is blaming you for everything bad that's ever happened to them, there's nothing to be gained from contact at this point. You're not going to get any reason from this person, you're not going to get any sense, and you're not going to be able to talk sense into them. Right now, you know, you need to focus on yourself. And if you're a codependent, that goes against your core nature, but it's time to change that. So go no contact. a few other things that helped me. One, I used to start getting a lot of exercise. I started, just going for walks and things like that. And eventually I kind of graduated to the gym. But it was just a case of finding something to occupy the brain, and, getting out on a nice walk. It clears the mind, it gives you time and space to think. I'd strongly recommend off alcohol or drugs at this point. Those aren't going to lead you to any good at all. I would also abstain from sexual relations at this point. This was a mistake that I made. I certainly did some things I regret in the aftermath of all of this, just to try and ease the pain, but all that did was create more drama and more problems that I really didn't need at that point. You kind of just got to retreat into a bit of privacy and just work on building yourself back up at this point. You will get better, the pain that you'll be feeling, if you've just been through this will be immense, but there's certainly hope there. I mean, I went from verging on suicidal to feeling pretty decent, and it's taken me the best part of a year, but I'm there, and you will get there as well. Definitely, you're not on your own. Try not to talk to your friends and family too much about what's happened to you. There are internet forums and communities that are set up for people who have just been through this. If the cluster B in your life was a borderline, BPD Family is a good website that you can use. I used that, and I made some good friends from that website who I Skype with. Basically find a community of people who've been through what you've been through and understand. Because the worst thing you can do is go to your friends about this sort of thing, because they won't understand, and they'll be tolerant of it for, a very short amount of time, but it's quite something when your heart's been ripped to shreds in front of you, and then you go to your friends for help and support, and they get annoyed at you, and they tell you that you need to get over it. It doesn't help, it just winds you up. So go to places where people understand this. And you can even talk to me, like, I don't have all the answers or anything like that, but if anybody wants to message me on my channel, do that. And if I've got time and if I can get to it, I'll help in any way that I can. You can explore professional options for counselling and therapy, if you can afford it. See if your place of employment has got an employee assistance program that might offer these services free of charge. If you're a university student, or community college, if you're in America, these organisations also might have that kind of support available. If you've got the option, use it. But I do understand that these services can be expensive, and for some people it just might not be an option, in which case, as I say, use the internet forums and message boards. Those are just my tips in trying to move on and get through it. Try to live as healthy a lifestyle as you can. Try to eat as good food as you can. Try to have a stable environment in your home life, where you can have peace and quiet and you can sleep. Sleep is very important. Those are just all some tips. Sorry if this video was a little bit rambling, but this is just kind of the way it's going to be on this channel. I might go off on tangents, but I'm just talking into a microphone and getting what's off my chest, and hopefully there's useful information in there for you guys. As I say, one of the worst things that you can possibly go through in your life, but it can get better, and it will get better. So it's just a case of staying as positive as you possibly can. Your pain is real, and you have to acknowledge that. And even if the people around you aren't particularly acknowledging that, all of us that have been through it know what it's like. And we sort of feel your pain with you, so you're not alone. look on the bright side if at all possible. You know, and if you are really struggling with this, reach out, and I'll do my best to pay it forward. Because when I went through this, you know, there was a guy, John Collins, who, you know, he was there for me. He's just a stranger on the other end of Skype, and without him, this whole process would have been much, much harder. So I won't do as good a job as John, but unfortunately he's not available for Skype sessions anymore. But, you know, I'll do my best to help. All right, have a good day.